Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Munch, munch, munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenges of being a man in modern society and whatever the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and joining me today to chat man stuff is Maddie. How you doing, Maddie?
Good, mate. I'm good. Just about to sit down and relax after a crazy weekend of activities, both yesterday and today. So I'm due to put the feet up.
Well, you did send through your list of activities for yesterday. There's a lot of structure to the day. It's one of the ones we discussed before in a previous episode about structuring the day for your kids and maybe getting a better result out of the day. How'd it go for you yesterday?
Yeah, really good. We've been doing this for a couple of weeks now in terms of weekend structure, and the girls are now waking up asking to see if the whiteboard's been filled out for the day. So they know where they got to be, what activities they're doing, and so far so good.
That's excellent, because that's something we want to discuss tonight is disciplining children. And I say disciplining if they do something wrong, but more about different methods that you can deal with the kids when they maybe play up, or if they're doing something dangerous as much as anything else. There is a difference between doing something which is endangering them or endangering somebody else and just being a knob, like not going to the bathroom, which is some of the things we're encountering at the moment here. And our little fella is going through what I've called a knob phase. He's 3 and a bit. I guess it's a terrible 2s. He's at the terrible 3s as well. And someone coined for me one time something which was called the F and 4s, and their kid was going through the F and 4s. So you've got a 7-year-old and a just turned 4-year-old. How long was their period of, I guess, misbehaviour or not listening, and what kind of things helped bring them out of that or brought them around?
The F and 4s, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, okay, so Mia, 7, she had a bit of a short phase, I think, from what I remember. My memory is so consumed with Eloise at the minute and her disciplines, but I'll come to that. So Mia was a bit of a golden child when we look back now. In terms of disciplining her, she responded well, I guess, to fear of getting in trouble or a fear of a consequence. So if she did something wrong, which is few and far between, and when she did do something wrong, you sort of felt a bit, you never do anything wrong. Do we really need to punish you? But we did, and whether that was a consequence of no TV for the week or no iPad for the week or missing out on tuck shop for an extended period of time, that was one that she sort of responded well to. So that's how we dealt with it with Mia. And I guess I think she had a bit of a terrible 2 phase, and she was out of it by the 3s from memory. So it was quite short. Whereas with Eloise, she's been going through her phase for probably 18 months to 2 years, I reckon, and still going through it now. And it's even been different phases of behaviour. And at the moment, the behaviour is very up and down. So I guess the last week or two, we've been trying a different couple of methods, which seem to be working for her in terms of her behaviour is becoming a little bit better. But prior to that, we'd be, reading textbooks, jumping onto different podcasts, listening to professionals talk about different ways to raise kids or how to react to kids' behaviour. And it just really hasn't been working. We've tried star charts for behaviour, which that works for a week because I guess it's a novelty. So if they do something well, they get a star. If they do something not so well, a star might be taken away. And at the end of the week, you tally up the stars and there might be a reward depending on the level of good behaviour. So that has, I guess, stopped at the moment because that, as I said, only worked for a small period of time. But at the moment, we are, I guess, rewarding good behaviour by really, short of jumping up and down and making a big song and dance, we're sort of praising the hell out of anything she does well. Mm-hmm. And instead of yelling at her for anything she does bad, we just sort of, stop, look her in the eye and just talk to her about how disappointed we are with what she's doing. Does she think this is a good thing to do or a bad thing to do? And for example, today she was told to brush her teeth and she's just squeezing the toothpaste into the sink for no reason. Little things like that. And it was very, very hard to not just go, what the fuck are you doing? So, again, you just got to sit down, look her in the eye and just have a chat to her about it. So kids are very, very different in the way they respond to discipline.
And the thing is, I think they understand. They understand what you're saying. It's not that they're naive to what you're saying or they don't understand what you're saying. I'm certain they understand exactly what you're telling them to do or asking them to do or maybe asking them not to do, but they do it anyway. I don't know if it's sort of just just something's not wired right, but they just do just knob things. Like our little fella's been great at toilet training. He's been really like go to bed though the last 3 nights. It's like it's a game. I'm not going to get on the potty. I'm not doing this. I'm going to run up and down the hallway. But it's just a game. I don't know if he's just testing us to see how far he can kind of string us along. So we're really struggling collectively. We probably have a different approach to myself and my partner. Maybe have a different approach to parenting and disciplining, which may not help because you probably do need a more consistent message. But man, at the moment he's just becoming an absolute little knob. And I keep on saying, every kid goes through this knob phase. It's just most people don't usually see it. It's just the parents who see it.
Absolutely right there, Kane. Absolutely right. So he may well be trying to just push the boundary to say, okay, what can I get away with here? Or, well, me saying this about your kid, you may be being a knob, but I don't know if that's the right word from me calling your kid a knob, but they do that. They push boundaries, and especially with, not to harp on too much about Eloise tonight, but that's the age she's going through at the moment. She'll hear what you're saying when you tell her to do something, and she'll just choose not to do it and go about her day because she knows you're going to ask her again. And Kim has pulled me up on this recently, and she's right. I will ask Eloise to do something, and if she hasn't done it in 10 seconds, I find myself asking her again and again. So A, I'm not giving her the time to process the request and do the task, and B, it's coming out too quickly, and she knows I'm going to ask her again anyway, so she doesn't need to do it straight away. So Kim has suggested that ask her once and give her some time. And I've been finding, while she might not do it in that 10-second period where I think it needs to be done, 20 or 30 seconds later, it will get done. So I'm finding that I really need to restrain myself in the way I sort of approach that.
I can really relate to that because I know when I get a list of chores which are required to be done, and there's a list, and notionally myself and my partner will do particular chores. I notice that if I get asked multiple times to do something, I ain't going to do it. But if you ask once, and eventually I'll get around to it. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but I'll know that next week when it's least expected, I'll actually get around to doing that task. So I do think there might be something in that. Like the kid understands what you're asking. So if you ask them to do something once, then just tell them once and give them some time to process it and actually to action it, and not expect instantaneous sort of gratification of that chore's done, or you've successfully sat on the can, mate.
You and Eloise must have the same star sign, perhaps.
Oh, we're going to star signs. What star sign? Well, I'm a Gemini. She would almost be a Gemini, would she not?
She's May 21. So
believe that would be in the Gemini. Maybe maybe I can give you some advice around Eloise.
Yeah, I'd love some.
But no, like I'm probably at the other end of the spectrum where I will probably ask once, and then if it's not done and there's a lot of pushback, I'm okay. I have a real issue when he asks things back in a really sort of whiny tone, or just mocks in a really whiny tone. I'm like, mate, just ask me a question. You don't have to be you have to be a knob about things.
Oh, that whining voice isn't annoying. Isn't it annoying?
Oh, it is. The whining and the screaming. I'm like, there's no need to scream, man. It's just go to the toilet. You don't have to go now. Just go when you need to, but just go, mate.
Yeah, why do they scream in a confined space? Like we have obviously we got Sam who's just about to turn 1, and putting him to bed, and I'm constantly asking Eloise to inside voice Eloise. There's no need. I'm right, I'm a meter from you. You don't need to scream at me. Now I don't know whether she does that because an attention thing, or second child, perhaps. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
But the only thing I've read about, and I'm not great at sort of reading stuff. I do a lot of things on instinct. The only thing I've read, it's kind of connection-wise. If you can, if you maintain your connection with your kid and communicate with your kid, then you'll generally get a better result. And that, I guess, it goes back to what Kim had suggested to you. It's around you trust the kid to actually do something, then you might get a better result. But maybe I need to try that, because the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks he's just been particularly I'm going to use the word knob a lot in this podcast. He's been particularly knobbish. And it's not like the old days. Like, oh, I'm sure you're in the same boat as me. Like, yeah, I was whacked on the bum when I was a kid. Like, if we did something wrong, we'd get smacked. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that these days. And I don't think it's probably wasn't maybe quite the right approach back in sort of the olden days. But it did seem to stamp out some bad behaviour to some extent.
It worked, didn't it? It worked back in the day. Like, I remember being very fearful of if I did something wrong, then the old line would come out, wait till your father gets home, and then you'd be worried what you're going to cop when you got through the door. But saying that, I know you and you know me, and we respect people. We respect our elders. We are very polite to people. We have manners. So they were doing something right back in the day.
Yeah, there's a line, I think, there's that line where people probably back in the day went over the line a fair bit. And I remember my mum would spank me, and one day I put a golden book. I think it was the little engine which could, or it could have been the pokey little puppy. I just whacked that down my trousers just before she was about to whack me, and she pretty much broke her hand while she was giving me a smack. So, she learned her lesson that day.
We did something similar. I figured out early enough, or probably late in the piece actually, but if I knew I was going to cop something when Dad got home, I just put on 10 pairs of underpants, and that would just absorb the shot, the whack of the hand. So, and then I just had to pretend to cry, and then it was job done. But
I love it.
The golden book down the pants, that is brilliant. That's a good little hack.
I don't know how she didn't notice. Like, it's a square golden book over it. Like, and most people have a round bum. Like, you slot it down there, you think it'd be easy to notice. But maybe she was that enraged. She was just incandescent with rage. She didn't notice that it was a square book sticking out of my pants.
Oh, that is hilarious.
But yeah, that's not the right. That is not the right way of going about things. But violence is never really the answer. It was never the answer. Negotiation with a toddler is exceptionally difficult. So maybe it is just, maybe you have to have a crack at just trusting them that they're going to eventually do the right thing, or they're going to do the right thing, and just guide them instead of sort of just constantly nagging, because no one likes being nagged.
No, that's exactly right. But I mean, look, we never smacked Mia. And she has turned out fine. Yet she had her phase, but she grew out of it. So there really is no need to smack your kids. And I think these days anyway, like, what would that really achieve? They're probably going to be like, well, they're smarter than what we were when we were kids. So they probably put 10 golden books or something down there to get around it anyway. But you're right.
It's live stream it or something.
Live stream it and straight down the police. Yeah, well, actually, they'd know their rights. They'd be exactly straight down the police station and bang, you'd be spending a night in the slammer.
Yeah, I do find it difficult to negotiate stuff though. Like, it's like negotiating with a terrorist sometimes. It's like, this is just constant sort of negotiation where, yeah, I think trust might make some sense, Matt. I'm going to go down the trust path now. I'm just going to ask once and just trust that that it will work, and if it doesn't, I'll have words with your better half.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting using trust for Mia. So an example of that has been she recently, we thought she might have taken some money to school from her birthday. She got some money for a birthday card. She tells us she didn't, and we just can't find the money. So we're just going to have to trust that she's done the right thing. And with knowing Mia's personality and her, I guess, fear of consequence, again, we're just going to have to, trust. But sometimes trust has gone out the window with Mia, and you can tell it really gets to her. So she'll, a day or two later, or even that day, she'll come and give you a heartfelt apology. She'll cop the consequence on the chin, and she'll try and earn your trust back again. So trust works well with Mia. I think Eloise might be a little bit harder with the trust. So again, we're going to have to find other ways for her.
Yeah, and every kid's different, so you got to have different levers which you pull to actually get the right. I guess the right result's probably not the correct words, really. All you can really want is your kid to behave well not endanger themselves or not be vindictive to other kids. It's not a really that high a bar to jump over. Like, I don't really care if the kid doesn't want to go to the toilet when I ask him to, as long as he goes when he has to. But as long as he's not endangering himself, like we're crossing the road and like he stops at the right point, and if he's, those sort of things, to me, that's all that really matters. And they're the hard things to kind of get by, because in those sort of instances, they're usually in an excitable state, like they've, been jumping around or running around or playing with other kids. So that's the hard bit. It's almost, you have to calm them down in some way, like 6 deep breaths or something like that, so they come back to some sort of mentally stable point, and then try to teach them, give them the lesson on why they can't do that particular behaviour. Because, inevitably most of these issues are caused by them being overexcited.
Yeah, that giving instructions in that sort of state that they're in is so difficult.
It's impossible. If I just run, if I'm running or someone's chasing me, and then you just go, hey, and now do X, I'll be like, what? So it just doesn't compute. Like, people, like men especially, can't do more than any one thing at one time. So it's I can't expect a kid to be able to do anything more than that.
I've never actually thought of it like that, Kane, but it does make 100% sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not tried that, but I think it's just, calm the kid down, and then just try to, reason's not the right word, trust, and just teach. And, they'll take it on board. Most kids are pretty clever. They get it. They get a lot of stuff. They get a lot more than adults give them credit for, I think, as well. And I think it's some of the battle where they understand a lot of stuff, and sometimes we can be a bit patronising to them as well, and overbearing on the way we kind of react to them.
Now, are you the eldest in your family, or is your sister older than you?
No, I'm the eldest. So yeah.
And what's the age gap between you two?
2.5 years, and I was much more of a jerk than she was. Like, my mum would tell anyone that I was much worse behaved than she was.
I was going to ask, did you ever notice, it might be too much of a short age gap, but did you ever notice any differences in discipline you received as opposed to your sister receiving? Because as the eldest child, I believe I was the prototype in terms of discipline, and probably got the harshest discipline out of the 3 kids. But fast forward, I guess there's a big age gap between me and my sister of 9 years, but she got away with everything.
Yeah,
I don't think there was any discipline with her.
And I think the issue is because, me being the eldest as well, by the time we actually got through all of that, we'd settled down and were pretty well behaved by the time they went through bad phases. So we kind of set the path of, and if I had continued being a jerk, or if you had continued being a jerk then, and didn't sort of change the way we were behaving, then I'm sure it would have been the same for our younger siblings. So I think your younger siblings and my sister have a lot to thank us for, Matthew.
Absolutely. And she listens to this every podcast every Monday morning, Becky, so it's true. But I think maybe mum and dad were probably, because they're a little bit older, they were either just, I can't be stuffed with this. Just do what you want, Becky. Or
there might be a difference between gender as well, to be honest. I think the way that boys are disciplined is inevitably different to the way girls are disciplined as well. And I think a lot of that, again, is a lot of the guy-based stuff. When little boys misbehave, it's all around being too energetic or too exuberant or too enthusiastic or too. It's like they've gone over the edge of something, as opposed to really misbehaving deliberately. It's more of an excitement thing where, I don't know, what sort of things do Mia and Eloise do which kind of get you goat?
Yeah, well, actually, on the boys, I'm about to come into this, so I'll be taking your points on tonight's discussion and apply them to Sam. But Mia at the moment is just laziness. So case in point, she had a 5-hour play date yesterday. She got home at about 7 o'clock, full of ice cream and whatnot. So when it was time for her to go and have her shower, she comes out of her bedroom and says, "Dad, you are the worst. You took all my pajamas this morning and put them in the laundry." I'm like, well, settle down. A, they're on the floor, so I'm assuming they're dirty. And B, you go and get you another pair of pajamas. Anyway, she stormed off downstairs, and then I walked into her room, and under her pillow were the pajamas she had on that morning. I went, right, I'm not copying this. So I picked up the pajamas, went up downstairs, threw them on the floor, and said, "What is this? You are so lazy." And then she gets into the whole, it's not nice to call people names. You can't call people lazy. I'm like,
Oh, man, it might be fair. You've made it personal there, Matthew. It's more about the thing rather than the person. It's not a general trait of her. It's just like it's not an isolated incident clearly, but it's it's not a personal thing. It's just a situational thing. So you got to deal with the situation and not have preconceptions. And I guess we all struggle with that because we all have the kid just rattling our cage from 7 to 7 every day.
Every day. But she is a very sensitive soul, Mia. So, any calling her lazy will just send her into a tiz and thinks the world's against her. And today she said, "Dad, is idiot a swear word?" I said, "No way. Call anyone you want an idiot."
Well, that's the other thing. I have to be really wary now of what I say around people. Like we have a Google Home at home, and we'll ask Google to tell me the weather and when it's going to rain and stuff like that. And then every now and again, Google will just not be able to answer the most basic of questions, like what's the temperature outside. I can't help with that. And I just go, Google, you suck. And then he's picked up that. So I really have to be careful of, go back and be careful of them also copying my behavior. Like if I yell at him, and I have to be really careful with yelling at him. I've certainly raised my voice more with him than my partner does, but I don't do that unless it's like sort of a really if I feel it's needed, instead of just like being a reaction where I've just kind of lost it. It's more of a controlled thing, but just using it to kind of just go, buddy, you can't kick the wall. Kicking the wall is bad. I've asked you not to kick the wall 3 times. You kick the wall again and looking at me while you're kicking the wall. That's kind of it. That's almost raised voice sort of stakes. So, but I do have to be aware. I do have to be aware of the mimicking, and if I'm doing something, then it's perceived as being okay.
Yeah, geez, that's crossing lines. But no, we do have to be very careful with how we go about reacting to these kind of behaviours, because you're right, they will mimic. I'll be honest, I've got a little bit of a short temper when it comes to some things, and I might throw something across the room if something's been pissing me off at no end for 5 minutes in a row. I might just lose it and then just walk away. It doesn't happen very often, but for instance, today I must have mopped something up, and I must have told the kids not to do something, and they've done it, and it's created another whole mess. So I've just sort of thrown a ball or kicked something. And I've looked at the kids and they've looked at me, and I thought, crap, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that's the worst. It's the worst feeling in the world as well.
It can be so hard.
Yeah, it is. They know how to wind you up as well. Like they deliberately, they know how to wind you up.
They're bored, so they must talk to each other and go, right, how can we get Dad today?
Yeah, exactly. It's just man, it's difficult. There's no right way, and there is wrong ways, I guess, but there's no real right way, and each kid's different, and kids like your experience now react to different things in different ways. What's worked for me is not quite working for Eloise, but between you and Kim, I know you'll crack the code, and Eloise will snap out of it, and ultimately they all tend to grow out of the phase anyway, even if we don't sort of crack the code.
Yeah, and then and then come the teenage years. I mean, we've got another 10 to 15 years of this, mate. So, if this podcast is still going, then we'll bring it up again on how to discipline teenagers or how to deal with teenagers who hate you.
I think that's when that will get worse for you with the 2 girls, because I think boys generally settle down in the sort of younger teens, and then maybe when they get a bit older towards 18, 19 might kind of get a bit more difficult to handle around the independent stuff. But girls generally from sort of 13 to 18 are more difficult to deal with, where Sammy might be a dream by then.
I can see myself throwing my hands up in the air and walking out of the house a lot. But
I did threaten to just go and come back when he's 18.
See you, son. Kim's dad, she's one of 3 girls, so he went through that. And there was 3 years in between each of them, so he went through it for a long time, and he's a very quiet man, let me tell you.
Kids. Like we discussed last week, though, they do a lot of cool things, or a lot of things which bring a lot of light to our days. But they also have those moments, and there is always a moment in each day. It might be a couple of minutes, or it might be longer on a particular day, where they just test your patience.
They do. And like you said, they'll do something that'll make you laugh, and you put a smile on your face, and you'll forget all about the bad behaviour for a period of time.
Yeah, I think we might do something a bit light-hearted next week. We've really got stuck into kids the last couple of weeks, so next week we might do something a little bit.
Kids.
Yeah, we might do something a little bit more fun. I think I'm not sure if Ryan's back next week or the week after, but if it's one more of you and me, we'll do something positive about a bit more all through the podcast, positive about kids. But that does wrap it up for this week. Do subscribe to Daddy Eats Laughs on iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review. Tell your mates about the podcast, especially if they are having problems with their children. Most of all, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week for another episode, or should I say serving, of Daddy Eats Last. How's that for a dad joke? Kids don't even laugh at them. Catch you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.